So we just want to begin by saying a heartfelt thank you to our partners, which are you guys, the sports administrators, that helped to make our calendar last year a huge success as it related to inter-school sports. This evening, we want to sit and discuss plans going forward, even as we review some of the successes of last year. We want to shore up some of the areas that we would have assessed and identified the need for improvement in. And we here at the Sports Commission always feel like that dialogue should be one that's more of a discussion where we express those views to you who are key in implementing those, and we are able to get positive feedback so that any implementation strategies that are put in place are successful ones. And so without further ado, I am going to officially open. I'm going to ask everybody to bow their heads as we pray to open this meeting. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us all here safely to this venue. We ask that you guide our thoughts, guide our strategies this evening, that it be productive and to the benefit of all of those here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, particularly our sports administrators and the athletes, as we seek to improve strategically at a national level in all of our program implementations and supporting programs as well. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. And so now I would like to invite the minister, the Honorable Rachel Taylor, to bring brief remarks.
I was looking around and trying to find the women, but I see a lot of men here today, this evening. But let me take this opportunity to say a special thank you to each and every one of you for being here this evening. And as Minister of Education, I know that we had to reschedule based on some priority meetings that I had to attend. So on behalf of the ministry, I want to say how much we appreciate you for being here today in spite of. In our presence this afternoon, we have our Deputy PS of Education in the person of Mr. Amin McCartney. It's a pleasure to have you here, Mr. McCartney. Of course, our Director of Sports, Mr. Jarrett. And our Deputy Director of Sports, Mr. Parker. And of course, our Chairman, Mr. Shenwell Gardner. And to all other members here from the Sports Commission, and to all our lead persons from the various federations, a pleasant good afternoon. I am honored to stand before you today to address the crucial role that each of you play in shaping the future of sports in our beautiful country. Sports have long been recognized as a unifying force that transcends boundaries and brings communities together. In the Turks and Caicos Islands, sports hold a special place in our hearts, not only for the thrill of competition, but also for the values of teamwork, discipline, and dedication that we will all instill in our athletes. As governing bodies, you are entrusted with the important task of overseeing and promoting sports at all levels, from grassroots development to elite competition. Your decisions and actions have a direct impact on the growth and success of sports in our country, and ultimately on the lives of our athletes and the well-being of our communities. It is essential that we work together to ensure that sports in the Turks and Caicos Islands are governed with integrity, transparency, and fairness. We must uphold the highest standards of sportsmanship and ethics, both on and off the field, to inspire our athletes and so that they earn the trust and respect of our fellow citizens. While the Sports Commission provides regulatory oversight of your operations and provide assistance in various capacities, you are entrusted with establishing and maintaining the standards in your respective sport to ensure that our athletes can maximize their potential. I encourage you all to ensure that you duly apply with the requirements for annual registration as a sporting body and lead effectively in creating the environment that will in turn produce the caliber of podium athletes on a regional and global scale that we know exists here in the TCI. We indeed applaud our athletes who have represented the Turks and Caicos Islands regionally and internationally, and the coaches who have prepared them to give them optimal performance. While we encourage our athletes to remain diligent in training to prepare themselves to compete at a high level, we also recognize that it takes a concerted effort in cultivating our athletes to excel. Let us work to provide the necessary development program meets and competition, resources, and structures to attain this objective. One of our primary goals must be to promote inclusivity and diversity in sports, ensuring that all individuals, regardless of their background or circumstances, have the opportunity to participate and excel in the sport they love. My ministry seeks to prioritize more sporting opportunities for our special needs students as we aim to have representation in Special Olympics in the not-too-distant future. You may say, wow, Minister, that's ambitious. We must strive to create a supportive and nurturing environment that encourages the development of talent and the pursuit of excellence in every discipline and for every demographic of athlete. Furthermore, we must invest in the infrastructure, facilities, and coaching programs that are necessary to support the growth and the development of sports in our country. While we anticipate the completion of the Turks Sports Complex, which will feature a full-size basketball court and cater to other sporting events, we have also invested in refurbishing the National Stadium, Gustavus Lieben Sports Complex, and community parks with sports and recreational facilities. And I must say, as reflected in this year's budget, it has provided opportunities for scoping and costing so that we can provide the necessary safe spaces for our young people to grow, to learn, and to thrive. By providing our athletes with the resources they need to succeed, we can help them reach their full potential and compete on a world stage with pride and confidence. Additionally, through the Commission, we have invested in sports performance coaches while assisting with coaching clinics and other technical assistance. And I want to take this opportunity to encourage you to ensure that your athletes take greater advantage of the Athlete Performance Center that is right behind us. I must say that this year, the track and field students who are actively involved in the track and field have been utilizing the Athlete Performance Center even more. And it's also important, too, that you communicate this to the parents of your athletes so that they, too, are aware of what we have to offer. Through the director and the guidance of the Sports Commission, we are seeking to establish direction in the growth and development of the sports sector, along with the required investment by revisiting the 5-year sports strategic plan and ensuring its implementation. This will align policies and strategic plans to national development priorities. As we look to the future, let us not forget the power of sports to inspire and uplift us, to bring joy and excitement to our lives, and to create lasting memories that will be cherished for years to come. Let us continue to work together, hand in hand, to build a brighter and more prosperous future for sports in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And before I bring my closing portion of my presentation, I just want to bring some update to where we are in relation to the ITT for the framework of our aquatic pool. Actually, this is in training where we have budgeted $200,000 for the scoping of work, and the aim is to fully scope out the work to be injected into the new budget. So therefore, when the new budget comes around, we will see a reflection of the entire scope of work for our aquatic pool. I also want to make mention to you that as the Minister for Education, usually when I come into contact with our athletes, I always ask them about that opportunity for them to apply for a scholarship. And sometimes I'm surprised, although the scholarship unit frequents the various schools, that they are not aware as to what is available. So I want to encourage the federations to keep abreast of the scholarship policy that you can find online, so that you yourself and your team of persons, or probably your mentors that you have aligned with these athletes, can take advantage of the scholarships, the international scholarships, and to also encourage them to retool and upskill themselves at our Turks and Caicos Islands Community College. This year, I've seen an uptick in the interest, and I'm going to say special thanks to Ms. Jody Harvey, who has been in contact with the Ministry of Education to ensure that those students are aware of what opportunities are available for them. We also saw that a lot of them have been receiving scholarships from Scouts, but therefore they have the desire to gain additional support. Now, we do have the Athletic Development Fund that I'm quite sure that Jody will speak to, but also we have opportunities for them. So let us say they have 3/4 of their scholarship paid for. The scholarship unit then, if they qualify, because remember now, their GPA has to also be up to par. So we will definitely ensure that we provide the opportunities for our athletes to benefit from the scholarships. Now, we are definitely going to meet with each of the federations on a one-by-one basis in terms of federations. My apologies again, because Jody had that scoped out already. But before the end of this academic year, we will be meeting with each federation, because there are things that we want to discuss with you, me as minister as well, on a more personal basis in relation to your federations. Now, I'm quite sure that many of you had the opportunity to receive our 2023-2024 annual report. I'm hoping that you seize the opportunity to read through it carefully and utilize the information so that you are able to answer the relevant questions that you want to pose. Another thing too, I mentioned it last year, and I'm so fond of ensuring that federations ensure that their boards are reflective of various skill sets. I mentioned it last time. So I'm hoping that as you continue to renew your boards, that you take into consideration the necessary skills that are needed so that you can have effective governing of your federations. So I'm reminding you to take that into consideration. In closing, I urge each of you to embrace your roles as leaders and stewards of sports in our country with humility, dedication, and a deep sense of responsibility. Together, we can make a positive and lasting impact on the lives of our athletes and the future of the sports in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Once again, thank you for your commitment and dedication to sports, and may we continue to strive for excellence and success in all our endeavors. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion.
Thank you, Honorable Taylor. And as we get into the roll call now, as was stated via the email communication, we would like each federation to give us a short update or summary on some of their successes over the past sports year. But just before we get into the roll call, I just would like to recognize some of the persons that are here that are contributing to this evening's event to help make this a successful one, most importantly, a productive one. So I'd like to extend a big thank you to Mr. Smith of the FSC, who is here with us this evening to share how we can be stronger administrators within the sporting world, and also the Director of Education, Mr. Edgar Howell, who will also speak to some of the partnerships that we can have as sports administrators with the various schools here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And I guess I should continue. I'll go ahead and recognize our executive members that are here. Our financial controller, Mr. Jonathan Ramraj. We have the Deputy Director, whom everybody is familiar with, the popular Mr. Alvin Parker. We have the Director of Sports, Mr. Jared Forbes. We want to say a big thank you to our Chairman, Mr. Shanwell Gardner, for joining us here this evening, and the DepSec for the ministry, Mr. Amin McCartney. We have, now I'm not going to call everybody's name, so I'm going to call you all by department. We have the Sports Performance Department here with us giving support. We have the Programs and Events Department, Media Department, Human Resources, Compliance. I do want to point out 2 new members of staff that you as sports administrators would want to familiarize yourselves with, and that's Mr. Marshall Turner, who is with our Programs and Events Department, and Miss Lydia Hanfield, who is also with our Programs and Events Department. And so now we will go into our roll call with the federations. Can I start with you, Carl? Okay, the tables are mic'd, so you can just go ahead and press the button. Some of them you have to hold, and I think some you can just press.
Good evening, Carl Isaac, President of the Turks and Caicos Cycling Federation. Good. For last year, our calendar year runs from January to December. Last year, we were able to attend the tour of Grand Bahama. That was last year, February. And we had also hosted our third, if I remember, the third tour of Turks and Caicos. That is the cycling event that we have normally would have happened across Providenciales and North, but then we had to change our schedule and just have it on Providenciales alone due to logistics. And we had also, at one year, we had it at Grand Turk as well, but due to logistics, we could only just have it on Providenciales. So far for the year, we haven't had a program so far for this year. A lot of it has to do is in terms of just lack of interest and the fact that we have not been able to grow our cyclists, particularly from the younger age. Even though we have been approached by some parents in terms of let's say having like Saturday sessions, it's just a matter of just getting that organized so we can have that program running again. So that's all I have to report for the time being.
Evening all. I'm Keith Barant. Normally I represent the Rugby Federation, but I don't see Fraser Dodds here today, so I'll just say a brief word about golf since I'm involved with that sport as well. For those of you that aren't aware, one of our student athletes, Brooke Rivers, entered Wake Forest last year, and she's been competing on the female golf team at Wake Forest. Wake Forest was ranked #1 last year, and I believe they're ranked #3 in the United States. So congratulations to Brooke for her success there. She's also the second alternate, I believe, to go in the female US Open golf tournament after the results of a tournament recently. The TCI sent a large contingent over to the Caribbean Classic tournament in the Dominican Republic, and there's a few people sitting in this room here right now that were there, and we were successful in coming home 2 years in a row as the champions in the Caribbean on that tournament, so another success for golf in that regards. We are currently going through the qualifying process for the men's, more serious golf tournament that'll be happening. And for those of you who aren't aware, they have to walk the course and they have to shoot a minimum of an 80 score. 240. 3 rounds. Yeah. So on average, you have to shoot 80 or less. So like Gervin is saying, you have to be 3 rounds totaling no more than 240. Otherwise, you don't qualify to get into the tournament. And that'll be a bit of a challenge walking the course because we don't normally walk out there and scoring as well. So I don't really have anything more to say about golf since I wasn't prepared to speak on it, but here it was. On the rugby side, bit better prepared. We have hosted 4 domestic tournaments in the last year, and we have 1 more to happen tomorrow. 2 of those were particularly gratifying. One of them is we had 20 Brock University students come down here, and they went out to the schools and they helped sort of provide a social messaging to the kids at the school there. And they then came and hosted a tournament on the Friday for the high school and a primary tournament on the Saturday, and that was very good and was well attended. Last Friday, we had a ladies-only tournament. This was a result of some of the requests from the young ladies that play in our Saturday morning league, where they felt perhaps that the young men were hogging the ball too much, not passing to them, not giving them an opportunity to shine. And we ended up with 10 high schools signing up. The tournament went great. We had about 120 young ladies out there, and it was really gratifying to watch them play because every game you could see their confidence growing, and it was like, I can pass, I can catch, I don't have to run into a defensive trap, I can back up and reset myself. And there was some really exciting moments of rugby out there, and the young ladies were enthusiastic about it. The last game between Grand Turk and Provo Middle School was a tie at the end of regulation time, and how we work those tournaments is you start with 6 players on each team on the field, and after 2 minutes of overtime, you take 1 player off each team. Then after another minute, you take another player off. We've never had it go down that there was only 2 players on each team left on the field. That's a lot of space to cover out there. And eventually Grand Turk managed to get a pass away, and the other player on their team at that time gathered it in and scored to win the 3rd place on that. But it was pretty exciting to watch that happen. The men went to Washington last month, and we played the Washington, D.C. team. We played on a field right underneath the Washington Monument, so some of the photos are kind of spectacular because you see it looming over the field in the background. I told the team that we had arranged a flyover, but it was already scheduled to happen at noon. We just happened to be kicking off at the same time, so that was kind of cool as well. Right now, rugby has 3 RDOs employed. We're visiting 24 schools a week trying to promote rugby there. Those RDOs are seeing on average between 500 and 550 kids a week. There's been a big push to get over to North and Middle Caicos, and for the primary school tournament tomorrow, all 3 of the primary schools from North and Middle are bringing kids over here. That means that the entire Middle Caicos team the school will be over here for the tournament, because I think there's 10 kids in the school or something like that. So we're looking forward to hosting that tomorrow. We've also managed to get over to South Caicos to the primary school there. Our rugby development officer, Gabrielle Dunnage, she had a great time over there. The phys ed teacher was very receptive, and we're looking forward to building the rugby program in South Caicos. We are hoping, if everything stars align, that our rugby development officer is going to be in Salt Key next Tuesday, and I believe that will be the first time anybody from rugby's actually went over to Salt Key to try and introduce the sport there. Currently, right now, we have Brian Habana showing up here at the end of next week. Brian Habana is a former South African international superstar. He won the IRB Rugby Player of the Year twice, lead try scorer in World Cup. He's going to come over here and work with the men and women's sides. He's going to participate in a golf tournament on Friday, June 21st. So I expect to see all of you out there swinging a club badly, but contributing to junior rugby. He's going to work with the youth program on Saturday morning, and then we're going to have the dinner on the beach in front of Waimara on Saturday evening. We have Aaron Kennedy from Rugby Americas North coming out here in September. There's been so much interest in rugby by the phys ed teachers out at the schools that we're going to put on another level 1 coaching, and we'd certainly encourage all of the sports commission staff and anybody else that has an interest to come out and participate in that. I'm working right now with a fellow called Zach Zoribus. He worked with Rugby Canada, and we're hoping to bring him on as a 4th rugby development officer in September. I don't know if we have enough money to lure him down here and stuff like that. I'll have to use my charm and personality. I don't think we'll see him. Okay. So that's pretty much it for what rugby has been up to over the last year, but we're really excited about where the youth program is going. Every Saturday, the program is building. We now have a league running on Saturday morning with, I believe, 8 teams set up. We're seeing somewhere between 75 and 90 kids coming out there on a regular basis, and it's really starting to get some legs underneath it after we finally got the right people in place to run it on a regular basis. At that being said, I'll turn this over to Mark because he's just arrived. Don't tell him that I already talked about golf.
Pleasant good afternoon, everyone. I take it this is a session where everyone report on the activity that is happening within the organization. Yes. And Keith has already talked about golf, so I'm good. But yes, first of all, I want to apologize for my attendance. The president called me from his hospital room. I don't know whether he was in the bed or not, but said that he couldn't make it, and I had to come to be here for him today. But a lot is going on in the sport. We're trying to revive and get more young people interested. We are currently looking now to put out a flyer that talks about the opportunity that will be available for a summer program where we would be using 2 coaches, a male and a female, for on a first-come, first-served basis for any of the kids that would be available for attendance at the golf club on a 2-week trial basis. So the kids who can't make it in the first week will be able to get in on the second week. But generally, we have been discussing the way forward to get more young people involved. In particular, we have been exploring the possibility of hiring a technical director because as we have heard from the Rugby Foundation or Rugby Football Union, the only way they were able to adequately get off the ground was because of the dedicated personnel in the form of a technical director. And so that is the road that we're going. Apart from that, that is as much as we can share at this time. Thank you.
I don't want to be seen as hogging the mic, but just one further thing on golf. For the Brian Habana Golf Tournament on Friday, June 21st, part of the entry is every team is going to have a junior rugby player inserted on there. So I expect Jared to carry that young man or lady, whoever it might be, and help him out and stuff. But hopefully, maybe Mark, when he's out there, can see some of the talent from the rugby guys and try and poach them away so they come and go golf.
Oh, just Lucy, thank you. Hello, everyone. Edith Skippings. I'm the president of the Turks and Caicos Amateur Athletic Association, the governing body for track and field here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. In 2023, we went to our annual general meeting of World Athletics, and was also an election meeting there. I have been voted in for World Athletics on the Development Commission. We are under the NACAC area, which is the North American, Central American, and the Caribbean area. And I have been voted in on the executive body for NACAC for our region as an executive member. In November in 2023, here locally, the TC3As, we held our annual general meeting and elections. We now have a new executive body, of which I still stand as president of the body. We still aim for excellence in track and field, with doing all we can in promoting our athletes, while at the same time trying to ensure that their academic standard is kept at a highest level positive, and also helping those that are not so good in academics to try and bring that up to a certain standard. Earlier this year, we held 2 development meets in collaboration with the Sports Commission, and then we held inter-high school championships where the athletes from all of the islands came to Provo, where our national stadium sits. Then we held the Carifta trials, and then we had the inter-primary school championships, where all the primary schools from all the islands also came over here to Providenciales, to the National Stadium, to take part in that event. All of those events were held between February and March of this year. Last year at the Carifta Games, we were successful in winning 3 medals. And for the first time ever, 2 of those medals were for field events. So you see, we have the talent. We just need to nurture the talent and have our athletes know that they are capable, and have coaches that is able to train our athletes. This year at the Carifta Games, we were successful in winning 1 medal, and that medal was also in the field events. This year at the Carifta Games, like always, we had quite a number of personal best performances by our athletes. And we also have had a few of our national records here in the Turks and Caicos in track and field that were broken this year by some of our athletes. Just last month in May, we had the Kids Athletics 1-mile run that was being promoted by World Athletics worldwide. And we had a number of our athletes here in Providenciales that took part in that 1-mile run, and our miles was registered on the global registry under the 1-mile run. We also had some athletes in Grand Turk that took part in that 1-mile run. And just here 1 week ago, just last weekend, we partnered with the Red Cross in putting on the Red Hot Challenge, which is a sporting event for all corporate companies to take part in. We actually had registered about 18 companies, but I think we ended up having 15 that actually showed up. I'd like to say a big thank you to members of the Sports Commission that came out to that event, and a special thank you to the members from the Sports Commission that we were able to get to join some of the teams, and they ran the relay to help out some of the teams in that event. The overall event on Saturday was won by Beaches Resort, with second place going to Amanyara Resort. And it was very well received by all of the corporate bodies. And it's a yearly event that we're looking to keep on putting forward, with more corporate companies signing on to that event. With that being said, I would like for all of you guys, I would like for all of us to be able to support each other in our sporting ventures and visit each other when we are putting on these events. And for those of you that turn out to track and field events, I say thank you, thank you, thank you, on the behalf of Turks and Caicos Amateur Athletic Association. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Commonwealth Games Association, Turks and Caicos. Here at the table is the President, Mr. Godfrey Bain, and First Vice President, Edith Cox, and myself. Unfortunately, Mr. Bain is not feeling 100%, so I will speak on behalf of the Commonwealth Games Association. And we all know that he must be really not feeling well because he's one who loves the mic. Our activities for the Commonwealth Games Association, we participated in the Commonwealth Youth Games, which was held in Trinidad, and we participated in swimming and athletics. Turks and Caicos also participated in the first Caribbean Games in swimming and athletics, and that was held in Martinique. We took part in the Central American and Caribbean Games in San Salvador, and we participated in swimming, athletics, and volleyball. And I must say that volleyball was the first time we participated in volleyball. And also for Commonwealth Youth Games, swimming was the first time. As you all know, we also participated in the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, and we participated in swimming, athletics, and again, cycling. And cycling was the first time that we participated in cycling. In October of this year, Turks and Caicos will host the CANOC annual general meeting and awards ceremony, the inaugural award ceremony, as well as our regional meetings for Commonwealth Games Federation for the Caribbean and the Americas. We will also be hosting the International Olympic Committee Sustainability Conference, and that will take place from October 16th to the 20th. But all of the associations will receive more information on that, as we will seek your support, and you would also be invited to attend certain sessions. Another accomplishment for Turks and Caicos that I think all of us present in this room should feel proud of is the fact that Ms. Edith Cox was again appointed as the treasurer for CANOC. And I think she needs a round of applause for that accomplishment. In October, visiting us will also be the president of the Commonwealth Games Federation. And again, we would be inviting all of our associations to meet with him and to have whatever chat you would like to have during those times. But you will receive additional information in due course. Thank you.
Hello, I just wanted to add, I forgot to mention that tomorrow we are leaving with a team. We are going to the Miami Classics. It's a yearly event that is held in Miami, Florida. And we leave tomorrow, and the meet is being held on Saturday the 8th and Sunday the 9th. And about this event, this year, because we did not have funding, what we had asked is for the parents to purchase the athletes' tickets, and the association would try to find funding for the meals, the accommodation, and transportation. We're still trying to get funds sorted out for the accommodation, but we were able to get someone to put it on their credit card. And I'm happy to say that 26 parents stepped forward and purchased tickets for their kids that are in the clubs to go to this event. So I know that we can do it in sports by involving the schools and the parents and putting everyone in a position to try and help us to continue to keep sports alive in Turks and Caicos. And last, but not by no means least, we have one athlete that has been chosen and made the standard to attend the World Athletics Under-20 Championships this year that will be held in Lima, Peru in August. And that athlete is Rayvon Walken. He will be representing Turks and Caicos at the World Athletics Under-20 Championships in the 110-meter hurdle. So let's give him a big round of applause, because that is a grand accomplishment to be selected as one of the athletes to attend that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. Dawn Fulford. Is that on? Yes, Dawn. Yeah, Dawn Fulford, Turks and Caicos Islands volleyball president. Volleyball has been slowed for a little bit. However, we have now revived the federation, and last year we come in the Caribbean Games in El Salvador. And then we also competed in a tournament in Dominican Republic. We're pretty much our emphasis now on beach. Beach is only 2 persons, and it's cheaper, and it's easier to get teams together. On Saturday, June 8th, we're going to have the inter-high school volleyball tournament. And June 8th is one of the best days in the year. It's also my birthday. So I take it as a present to me. Anyway, last night we had our Zoom meeting. July 4th, I go to Punta Cana for our regional meeting, and General Congress would be in Portugal in November. We're trying to put together a stronger federation and looking to have volleyball played more often. However, I'm looking for all your support out here, 10 o'clock on Saturday. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. David Douglas here, representing Sailing, TCISA. Prone to long-windedness, so we prepared a quick video. I think Jody has it queued up just to summarize our last year. So take it away, Jody. So thank you, Jody. I'd just like to say that we feel the responsibility of being good stewards of this TCI heritage sport. I'd venture to say that the foundations of this country are built on locally built sailboats. So we celebrate the origins of sailing in the TCI with the promotion of the model boats, as you saw, and the TCI sloops. But we also promote the Olympic classes and continue to represent regionally and on the world stage. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Bennett Williams. I'm here representing the Turks and Caicos Island Swim Federation along with Wadoya Robinson, our treasurer. I will just give you a brief summary of some of the things that we did this year. I assume the presidency of position this year of 2024. In April, we went to Carifta and Nassau, Bahamas, where we took 17 swimmers. I think the largest amount of kids we have ever taken overseas for an international meet. We are currently sending 5 swimmers to Mexico for the CC Can event, which is a big accomplishment. We are also currently going to send 14 kids to the Goodwill Games in St. Lucia, which is another accomplishment that we are hoping to achieve. We also attended, we sent 2 swimmers to World Championships in February in Doha. What I must say this before I close off the mic is that we are only able to accomplish this in a 17-meter pool, which is currently not suited for kids who want to compete internationally or who want to compete or swim competitively. So we are hoping that that pool will get built because we are in need of a pool. I also want to highlight Tajari Williams, who have swum twice for Turks and Caicos in open water, and this time he has dropped 2 minutes from his time, making him in 11th position out of 32 kids, which I think is a big accomplishment for Turks and Caicos Islands when it comes to open water, because we only started last year and he did it again this year at Carifta, and I think he deserves a round of applause. But before I close the mic, I would just want to emphasize we need a pool.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dane Ritchie, Technical Director of the Turks and Caicos Islands Football Association, and here with me is Monet Gooden, Clerical Assistant. We're representing our President, Sonia Fulford-Missick, and our GS, Mr. Oliver Smith. Just to give you guys a couple of things that went on last year. For the first time, our boys under 15 managed to win a medal, a bronze medal at the CONCACAF Championship. And I'm happy that the minister also recognized that, and as well as Mr. Forbes, and actually, treated the boys who were involved in that. We have our U14 girls and our men's and women's teams participating in regional tournaments as well last year. Results weren't as we wanted, but we continue to build on what we're doing. We have also have to focus on what is happening in terms of the youth transitioning to the senior teams, and most of those teams are made up of junior players representing at the senior level. So the future looks bright for our teams going up. Last year we also managed to put on an inter-primary schools tournament, which features 14 primary school teams, and we had teams also from Grand Turks, South Caicos, and North Caicos. That was a big event, and thanks to the Sports Commission for his support in making that happen. We also managed to put on, with the help of the Sports Commission as well, inter-high school football. 10 boys team and 5 girls team participated in that event. Also on the school level, we have managed to introduce 2 programs which assist the schools in improving the game or spreading the game and also addressing social issues in the school. And these two programs are the FIFA Football for Schools program. That program provides training and also equipment. And most recently, we have the Generation Amazing program, which is provided through CONCACAF. And that program is also similar to the FIFA Football for Schools program. We must also mention our programs that we have that we allow students to matriculate to universities, mostly in the US. So we have our identification camps where coaches come down and look at our athletes. And so far this year we have had 5 athletes matriculate into universities with partial scholarships so far. And we have others in conversation, so that number might increase. In terms of infrastructure, we are building our dorm facility, which will have 27 rooms when completed, along with a gym, cafeteria, and dining space and office space. So that is something we're also looking forward to. And of course, the other associations may benefit from this as well. Want to also mention the assistance given by the Sports Commission in providing strength and conditioning preparation for athletes at both the junior and senior level, and that has had a great impact on our athletes. So we have had great support for that. Thank you again, Mr. Forbes and your team for assisting us with that. Also want to mention the opportunities that our officials are getting on the international scene. We have had referees, we have had match commissioners, we have had coaches that have training opportunities and also job opportunities, external, international competitions. And that is something that we're proud of because they're trained here locally and are recognized in the region and internationally and are getting jobs out there. That is about it from us. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Trevor Cook. I'm the president for the Turks and Caicos Basketball Federation. And I would like to thank the commission for this event and gives us the opportunity to have these type of exchanges that we're currently having. I am new president. I took over from Sidwell Glasgow. We have an executive that is made up of a consortium of people, more seasoned people and younger people who would work with those more seasoned people to become the future executives of the organization. We've begun work on a grassroots program targeting principally the primary schools throughout the country and persons who play in other leagues as well within the Turks and Caicos to help them to become more fundamentally sound, because we have recognized that with those people, if we're able to get them prepared at an early age to play the game correctly and to be able to think the game the way they should, we stand the chance of producing more top-class athletes in the sport of basketball. A more recent phenomenon for us is women's basketball. We had worldwide, we had a president that was a female coach for one of the top universities in the United States, and her emphasis was women's basketball, developing more female basketball players. At home here, we're not renowned for spending as much time and using as much resources on female basketball. But with our tenure, in terms of the new executives, female basketball has has moved up the scale in terms of being one of the targeted areas we want to grow. And so we have this program in which we're working with our international body, How Rule. It contributes to the development of female basketball players. And so I also want to take this opportunity to recognize Mervyn Forbes and his wife, Dacia Forbes, in their organization, Rising Star, and the contribution that they continue to make to basketball but at this key junction in our history, they are contributing currently to the development of female basketball players. And so that assists the federation in trying to grow that particular product. We've had, over the history of the institution, we've had 2 national teams. The first one that we've had is a senior male national team, and about a year or 2 ago we had a U15 junior male basketball team. The young men both of those events were historic, but what made the event that the young men participated in even more historic, they was able to win a game in a very competitive against a competitive team within a competitive group. So normally what happens with us is that we have our own regional body, which is the CBC, which is Caribbean Basketball Confederation, but we also compete in another body that is the CONCACAF, that involves the English-speaking Caribbean, the Caribbean and the Spanish-speaking countries throughout the world. And so that event, where the young men was able to win a game, the competition was, the event was very competitive. And so that was the group that we competed against. We have begun to have more camps and invite more people from outside to host camps. One of the individuals that have assisted us over the past year is Irv Rollins he's one of the coaches for one of the NBA teams. The name doesn't come to mind, it's gonna come back to me, but Irv has been a tremendous asset as we seek to develop young players. We also would annually have our senior men's basketball league, the Provo Amateur Basketball League. And so we were getting ready to host that event once again. We also, one of the things that we're currently doing is that the training of resource persons, training trainers to train, because we recognize that if we hope to develop talent in the area of basketball, we need more numbers in terms of resource persons at home. Because when you look to attract resource persons from outside of the country, it is rather costly when that money can be spent on developing local talent. As a result of these different things that has taken place in terms of the training that we've done at home and inviting persons from outside of the country to assist us in training, we have about 20 young men that are attending high school outside of the Turks and Caicos in the sport that has to do with the sport of basketball. We have X amount of them in the Bahamas, and we have which is a pretty decent number, and we also have about 7 of them that are in the United States, and they are high school persons, but for the most part, they have a number of years there to continue to develop and play the sport of basketball. We also, in terms of our coaches, because at home coaches are very, very important in terms of developing talent, and so we have different courses for the coaches. We have the online training, and from persons from outside of the Turks and Caicos that has to do with our parent body to assist us in developing coaches and trying to get them thinking correctly, doing the things that they need to do to develop talent. There's a new area that has gotten quite a bit of attention within the sport of basketball, the 3x3, or some people like to say 3-on-3 basketball. It puts you in a great position to compete, because now you don't need a roster of 12 persons to compete. You just need a roster of 3 persons. And so we're looking to not only grow this area, but to exploit this area even more in terms of trying to compete regionally and internationally, because for the most part, you can meet that commitment in terms of the number, but you have in terms of the young men, you also have persons that are good enough to compete overseas. One of the other things that we've been focusing on is the training. I know I mentioned that already, sorry. But one of the things that I want to take this opportunity to do while I have the mic is to thank the Sports Commission for the items that they have addressed and the things that they've been doing to contribute to the sport of basketball and developing talent and providing a platform for the young men to play. They have the PAL League going on, will be coming up, sorry. We also will have the national championships later this year. And also they continue to provide us with opportunities to access funds with regard to the sport of basketball in a number of areas. And so we want to take this opportunity available to us to publicly thank them and tell them that we appreciate them and we hope that we'll continue to work this partnership and to grow this partnership. And so as we continue to carry out our mandate, and some of the remarks that was made by the minister, for me, was very enlightening, and she named a number of areas that we should be able to access certain benefits, whether scholarships or some other type of funding, as we seek to grow the sport of basketball and to develop talent. Thank you for this opportunity for me to speak at this forum.
Just a quick one for darts before I forget. Darts we had a few events that we took part in over the course of the year. Last year, 2022, we were successful in fielding a team that went to Denmark. 4 men, 4 women. That was the 10th time Turks and Caicos took part in that event. Unfortunately, we didn't come back with any hardware, but the team played. All the players played well, and we tried. We truly did our best. Moving onward, we also regionally will be taking part in the Caribbean Cup, which is next month starting on the 19th of July, and I think it's for 2 weeks. The team, we are fielding a team of 8 men and 8 women that will be taking part in that particular event. Also, 3 members of that team will be taking part in a qualifier that will be for the World Darts Federation Championship that is in Lakeside in England. So those 3 members will be Brent Robertson, Lorick Smith, and myself will be taking part in that qualifier. Hopefully we can qualify for that championship. Also, this year we was able to have 2 youth development sessions, one in Provo and one in Grand Turk. The one in Provo was held at Clement Howard High School with a group of 9 kids. I would say the kids was happy and they was excited to learn about darts and play darts. That one in Providence was on the 13th of April, and the second one that we held was on the 27th of April, where they had about 12 kids in total over in Grand Turk. We also had our National Darts Championship, which saw Brent Robinson coming out as the men's champion, and also Mary Liprin as the women's champion. And that's the year for darts.
Jody, I just want to give me 1 minute. Just be with me. My headache is killing me. But I just want to apologize for softball because Santana and Paula were disturbed. Was supposed to be. Santana had to be flown out. Well, she's gone off for medical reason today, emergency. And Paula, for some reason, I think it was called back to work. So I apologize for that, please.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bean, and I want to say thank you to all of the sports administrators that were able to give highlights, and congratulations on some of your successes over the past sports calendar year. We will now progress to the Director of Sports presentation, Mr. Jared Hall. Please welcome him to the podium. What'd I say?
I do have halls in my family, all right? So I guess I am a hall. Good evening, everyone, again. And I definitely want to say thank you for coming out here tonight to take part in this annual meeting. Very grateful for the information you guys have shared. It's very informative, and I'm happy that you guys are making progress. My presentation, I'll try to be as brief as possible, but I want to say that at the Sports Commission, and I do speak on behalf of the Minister and the Chairman as well, to say that we do appreciate you and what you do, and we do understand the level of commitment that you guys make. We understand that in the Turks and Caicos Islands, like many countries around the world, especially smaller Caribbean countries, what you guys do as sport administrators are free will gifts to the community, where you guys are not being compensated for your time and your efforts. However, you commit to carrying out this monumental task of developing sports in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I do speak now on behalf of the athletes to say that in everything, there's a time to grow. And I believe that we're at a junction now where we need to make every effort to take sports to the next level. I know that sounds like a cliche. It is a phrase said often. But I really want us to make every effort to take sports and TCI to the next level. To put things in perspective, I would like for you guys to travel a bit down memory lane and to kind of remember the moment when you first fell in love with sports. I'd like for you to think about the reasons why you fell in love with sports. Think about the dreams that you had when that love was first developed. I want you guys to think about the opportunities that you long for and the information that you wish you had or that you knew. And definitely think about the support that you wish you had. I know oftentimes you hear guys say, man, if I had what they have today, just imagine what I could accomplish. Now I want us to fast forward to today, and all the things that you just thought of, it is now our responsibility to facilitate all those dreams, all those opportunities, that information, and the support. Us here in this room, it is now our time to facilitate that. I think the question really is, what is our purpose? In this room sits the sport leaders of the Turks and Caicos Islands. And of course, with leadership comes great responsibility. And there's no question, undoubtedly, us here in this room today, we are responsible for hundreds, maybe even thousands of athletes across the TCI and even some who live in other countries. Many of us in this room have been in this business for over 5 years. Some of us 25 years in this business. And I think the question we should ask ourselves is, how many athletes has passed through our hands? And how many more potential athletes has passed us by, meaning that they did not get the opportunity to play for whatever reason? I think our purpose should align with our mission. And I think the question you guys, and I would like to ask you as well, is what is your mission? At the Sports Commission, our mission is to provide the highest standard of promotion of sports in the islands by working with you, our key stakeholders, as well as others, to lead, develop, and promote sport and active living in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I would really love to know what is the mission of your organization. We have been collecting reports from you. We've been sharing information for quite some time, and I have not seen in many of our documents a mission. I haven't seen a mission from a lot of our sport organizations. My next question is, what is your vision? What we do and how we do it is fueled by where we see ourselves in the future. The Sports Commission's vision is for TCI athletes to achieve sustainable international performance and for all islanders to practice sport and adopt an active and living and healthy lifestyle. I believe it is extremely important, partners, that our mission and vision has alignment. It doesn't have to be the same, but I think we should find some alignment, right? If we are to walk together, which is critical in our country, we have to be traveling in the same direction. You know, our staff at the Sports Commission, we had a training today on customer service and some other matters, and I shared with them how unique sports is as a government agency. And as you guys are all residents here in the TCI, and you know that most government departments serves a function that is kind of mandatory in a sense, where if you want to drive a car, you got to go to road traffic. If you want to fly out of the country, you got to use the airport authority. These functions are mandatory. So at the Sports Commission, we have a function that is a choice. It is a choice. Persons don't have to play sports. Persons don't have to come inside this stadium. Sports is a choice. And so the question really is why? Why choose sport? As leaders in our sector, we need to understand what motivates our stakeholders and our shareholders. Why do athletes play sport? And some of you guys, you know what you put them through. You know what your coaches put them through. You know what your kids who play sports go through. Why are they doing all this, right? Why do parents allow their children to play sports? Why should a person become a coach? I mean, some of you guys mentioned about some deficits we have in our country as in coaching. Why should I become a coach? What is the motivation to become a coach? Why should a person become an official? Why are you sport administrators? What is your motivation? How can we attract more persons in the role of a sport administrator? Why should the government invest in sports? Why should the private sector donate to sport? I think these are questions we should always ask ourselves. I believe that we need to establish win-win relationships where every stakeholder, every shareholder who gets involved in sports wins. And I don't want to go through that list again, but I think it's important for us to think about it. Do you believe that your athletes today, athletes who come through your programs, athletes who you are responsible for, potential athletes, future athletes, do you believe they feel like they're winning right now? Parents of athletes, do they believe that they are winning right now? Are your coaches that are part of your programs, are they winning? What about your officials? Your sponsors, are they getting value for dollar? Does the public feel as if, as a sports sector, we are winning? And I'm not talking about winning games or winning matches. What I mean is we are getting from sport what we desire. Does the government feel as if we're winning? Do you, who commit your time year in, year out for so many years in this field, do you feel as if you are winning? I think our growth must be intentional. Our minister, that's one of her favorite words, and we're going to put a banner up in our office because we understand how important it is to be intentional about what we do. We must develop a sport ecosystem that meets the needs and desires of all of our stakeholders and shareholders. We must give our stakeholders and our shareholders a fair shot. We got to give our athletes a fair shot of achieving their goals. Guys, sports got to be done right, and when I say take sports to the next level, I'm not saying that we're not doing our best now, but I know that our best can always be better, and sports being done right will be extremely impactful. It starts with good governance. It starts with good governance as the National Federation executive. It starts with, it also goes to opportunities to enter your sport. When parents call the sports commission or stop by, they say, hey, my kid loves rugby. They have an interest in the sport. Where can we go? We want to say, all right, not a problem. Here's what you can do, and your kid can start to play sport. As federations, do we have a program that allows for entry into your sport at any point in time during the year? And even if you're taking a break, that there's a new starting point that kids at any level, whether it's a kid at 6 years old, 8 years old, or someone who is 38 years old, 40 years old, can they enter your sport and play sport? Do we have another way to really make sports impactful is to have coaches and officials development. Football just mentioned about some of our local trained officials who have been trained to a point locally where they're officiating regionally. And while I commend that achievement, I really want to see that for all of our federations, and I believe that we can accomplish that. Long-term athlete development. As an athlete, if I enter your sport at 8 years old, where do I go from here? When does my pathway end? What support do I have along the way? I want us to put ourselves in the shoes of an 8-year-old kid, a 6-year-old kid, who walks in front of you and says, I want to play your sport. What is the pathway for that kid? Where does that kid max out based on our efforts and the opportunities that we provide? High performance sport. Do we have a system of high performance? Do we have an advanced training program or an advanced training system plan for athletes who show immense potential, who want to compete and represent the Turks and Caicos Islands internationally, or who want to go to college, who want to be a college athlete, who would love to become a pro athlete? Do we have a high-performance program? And national representation. Some of us in this room, we see our teams traveling often, 3 and 4 times a year, which is great, because if our kids are not competing, they lose interest. Whether it be local competition that's organized and structured or international, that gives them a lot of fuel to compete and represent the country. But then we have others here, the teams are not traveling, we're not competing. Kids are asking us all the time, why isn't my sport competing? Recently when I came back, a kid put me over in the airport and it says, why is it that the sports commission is sending teams off to play this sport, but we're not sending teams off to play my sport? What do you have against my sport? And of course, as you guys know, we don't send teams off to play. You guys send teams off to play. We support you. But I couldn't even try to explain. He wasn't trying to hear that. If I had even tried to explain, well, you know, it's not us, he ain't trying to hear that. So I just took it on the chin. And I said, you know what, we'll do better. We'll do better. But these are questions that we get all the time from the community. And of course, sport for life. I think a lot of you guys started sport a long time and you stayed in it. You stayed in it. What is it that you experienced in sport that made you stay in it? How can we make others to stay in it? You would have this room way more filled. You would have more support, way better members on your executive, way more committed, passionate persons if persons stayed in sports. We have persons who played sports even at the collegiate level in Turks and Caicos. And once they finished playing, they never worked a day in the world of sport. They don't volunteer. Why? What is it about sport that turned them off? What is it about us, the leaders of sport today, that made them say, I'm not doing that? We need to create an environment where persons want to be in sport for life. And I know what you guys are saying. You say, this guy's just talking and he ain't talking about money. Because that's the reason why we are not able to do these things. We don't have money, right? And I agree. A plan without resources is a waste of time, right? But you can also agree that resources without a plan is resources wasted. So we had a catch-22 between a rock and a hard place. We want the plan, you want the resources. We got to meet somewhere. We need a plan. We need a solid plan. The government funding has improved a lot over the last 3 to 5 years. I wouldn't go too much into the details because you guys know, and we had a report that went out earlier. We have improved a lot in the last 5 years. But more is needed. And we know that. But we can't get more without a solid plan. And we can't get more without solid results. I do believe that we can do more creatively as a national governing body to receive more funding. For example, identifying new funding streams, conducting impactful fundraising activities. I've seen it. I've seen some of you at this table put on some activities that really inspires the community and raises money for your athletes. And do you know your athletes appreciate that? And they compete more for you because they see the effort that you're putting into the fundraising, and oftentimes they work the events for you, and it's a level of commitment, and it fuels their training, and it fuels their competition. We can also try to identify international source funding, but we must build trust and confidence through our financial management and our financial reporting. I think as a donor, because the Sports Commission provides grants to you guys, we wish you could do more. We do provide grants. And also, I know you have international bodies who provide grants. Some of you have corporate partners. But I think it's important that our spending shows impact. We love pictures. It's very nice. Pictures say 1,000 words, but it also says it doesn't always tell the true picture of what's happening. We love videos. Video editors can make magic happen. But for us, impact is what is happening in the lives and the pathway of our athletes. Those are the stories we want to hear. Real stories of impact, lasting impact. We need to be transparent in our spending, and we must deliver on planned projects. And you know what? It's always important to communicate your project success, not just to us as the government, but also to your corporate sponsors. That is very important. Just to kind of tie up my presentation, I hope I didn't bore you to death, but I want to say to you that we are all stewards of this moment. The athletes today are depending on us. They are. We're in this room right now, and I guarantee 1,000 athletes are probably at home dreaming about their next move. And the people who determine their next move are sitting in this room today. We are the gatekeepers of this sector. We must do what needs to be done. However, I know the weight is heavy, and we can't lift it alone, but I am confident we can do it together. And I think we must, I know we work together a lot. We share athletes a lot, right? And I don't want to go into details about long-term athlete development, but I want to say that let's not specialize too early. I think kids who are below 9 years old, they should play everything. You know, from 6 to 9, they should play everything. Every sport they can get their hands on, they should play. We shouldn't hold, and I'm guilty, believe me. If I would not be saying this 15 years ago. I kept my athletes, hey, you know, now if we're not in season, yeah, go play. But if I knew then what I knew now, that's not a good idea, right? Allow your athletes to try different sports. But there is a time through development where it's time to specialize, especially when they're starting to go through puberty, where, you know, that 12, 11 years old, then you'll find where they need to start focusing on a sport that they're good at, where they can excel, that they love. But we should not try to hold our athletes too tight when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Allow them to see and feel other sports, please, right? The question now for you, and my final statement is that, are we prepared to do what is best? And are we prepared to do our best so that we can create a sports system that allows TCI athletes to reach its full potential? Now, I am confident, and I believe that you do. What other reason would you be here if you didn't? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Forbes. It's been a long day, and I'm sure all of you that came straight from work can sympathize with me. Key points during the director's presentation and key things that we're looking to focus on this year: strengthening sports administrative skills, building partnerships, creating student pathways to success. And to assist us in speaking on those items even more, we have reached out, we the Sports Commission have reached out to our partners, and I am very grateful for them being here tonight. Mr. Smith from the FSC answered me almost immediately with exhilaration, being able to give assistance and support to the sports federations in terms of strengthening those administrative skills. So at this time, I want us to put our hands together and welcome Mr. Tamiko Smith of the Financial Services Commission, who will come with a brief presentation. He will also receive questions following his presentation.
Good night. Well, good evening. I would like to thank the Sports Commission for extending the invitation to the Financial Services Commission to attend this gathering. So before I get into my very brief comments, I just want to explain the role of the Financial Services Commission and for you to understand my reason for being here. The Turks and Caicos Islands Financial Services Commission is responsible for the prudential and AML supervision of the financial services businesses. Our primary responsibility is to protect the integrity of the Turks and Caicos Islands financial system. In addition to that responsibility, we are the registry. We house the registry for business names and the company's registry. More specifically, my department, the Anti-Money Laundering Supervision Department, of which I am the director, is responsible for carrying out the Commission's AML supervision framework. The AML supervision framework applies to a number of sectors, including what's called the nonprofit organization sector. So in addition to the NPO sector, we are responsible for AML supervision of the banks, MSBs, trust companies, corporate service providers, independent legal professionals such as law firms, etc. Given that wide mandate of the Financial Services Commission, it is necessary for us to be able to determine which sectors, thank you. Thank you. So it is necessary for us to determine which sectors in the financial system or which sectors that interact with the financial system we apply the necessary attention to. Nonprofit organizations, in the grand scheme of things, is not a sector that the Commission would like to apply its resources to. We try to do that only when it is necessary. However, in order for the Commission to make a decision as to how we supervise individual nonprofit organizations, we require information that you provide to us at the time that you register, and also on an ongoing basis when you submit your financial returns and update forms. So we take that information, assess it in order to determine whether an NPO is high risk, low risk, medium risk. That determines the level of engagement that we have with that organization. So just to jump a little earlier, well, to move a little forward, move a little backwards in my brief comments. NPOs are captured under what's called the counter-terrorist financing regime because international typologies have identified that the nonprofit organization sector is open to abuse for terrorist financing purposes, in addition to money laundering, but primarily for terrorist financing purposes. That concern is not one that the Turks and Caicos needs to devote a lot of attention to, because we know that there isn't terrorism in the Turks and Caicos. However, given the international nature of our financial system, the fact that we have access to the international financial system, we are a center where companies can be formed. The Turks and Caicos Islands has implemented the terrorist financing regime. And as I said, that extends to a number of sectors, including the nonprofit organizations sector. So how does the FSC apply the counter-terrorist financing regime? Again, that is through the registration of your organizations as an NPO. That is through the monitoring and supervision when you submit your financial statements. That is also manifested in my presence here on behalf of the Commission, which is through guidance and outreach. And that is also, unfortunately at times, through applying sanctions to nonprofit organizations where there are breaches of the NPO regulations, or if a nonprofit organization poses a terrorist financing or money laundering risk to the Turks and Caicos Islands. So what are your responsibilities under the AML CFT regime as nonprofit organizations? That is to register as an NPO, to ensure that you notify the commission of changes in your organization. That's changes of controllers, changes in your governing document. Those are critical pieces of information to the Financial Services Commission because, as I said when I started, we need to be able to make sure that we have an accurate risk profile of nonprofit organizations in order to determine how we regulate, how we supervise, how we monitor that nonprofit organization. Your responsibilities also include to file what's called suspicious activity reports with the Financial Intelligence Agency. That is a responsibility that extends as well to financial businesses, banks, etc. Now, we, as I said, recognize in the same way that several speakers before me have indicated, a lot of you have given up your own personal time to be able to contribute to the development of sports in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And the FSC does not see it as its role to be an impediment to that contribution to the community in the Turks and Caicos Islands. With that said, the benefits from the CFT regime to organizations like yours is that it does help to increase transparency and accountability in the operations of your organizations. It encourages NPOs to be aware of situations that may open the organization to being abused for terrorist financing purposes, for money laundering purposes, etc. Another key benefit for the Commission is that it allows us to engage with external stakeholders such as the Sports Commission in helping to ensure that that measure of accountability and transparency comes through nonprofit organizations. The vast majority of you, or almost all of you, would likely only interact with the FSC at the point that you have to submit a financial statement or to update changes, to update the FSC on changes to your organization. However, there are other NPOs who would not be as fortunate as you, because those NPOs would have received a compliance visit by the FSC, which is an on-site examination, which the NPO regulations does allow the FSC to carry out. The FSC does that only in situations where the NPO poses a high risk to the Turks and Caicos. And so I have no reason to believe that there are factors that exist within sporting organizations from the reports that I've seen filed by the various sporting organizations that would raise concerns or result in the treatment of a sporting organization as a high-risk nonprofit organization. And so, again, my being here is to demonstrate the appreciation we have for the role that nonprofit organizations play, the Sporting Commission plays, and to offer and to continue to offer ourselves in the spirit of collaboration and working together to be able to ensure that the sporting organization is supported in the way that they ought to be supported. And so I thank you again to Ms. Harvey and to the Sporting Commission for allowing us the opportunity to attend the AGM. Apparently I was. This usually does not happen, but thank you.
Thank you. And right along those same lines, we're now going to invite the Director of Education, Mr. Edgar Howell, who is going to talk more about building partnerships and creating student-athlete pathways. And I want to say a special thank you to Mr. Howell because he had to go to Grand Turk today, and he came directly from the airport here to Gustavus. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. hopefully you will be able to hear me for the duration of the presentation. Of course, I felt set up after I walked in the room to meet the minister doing a presentation and Mr. McCartney sitting at the table. And so I motioned to Mr. Parker, why am I here? When both of them could have done this presentation. As I listened to the roll call and to the brief reports that each of you gave, I realized that all of you are working with our children. All of you are working with our children in our schools. There are 16 public schools, 5 high schools, 11 primary schools across the TCI, and we count about 22 private schools, high schools, primary schools. Some of them are operating daycare centers as well, catering to an approximate student population of about 7,000 children, or children and young people, as you see them. And many of you spoke about things that you are already doing in schools. And I listened to all of the activities outside of formal school that takes place on a Saturday, that happens during the calendar year. And so I want to thank you. The minister may have already done this, but now you're hearing it from the Director of Education. I want to thank you for the investment that you make in schools. I know, rightfully so. I know that in some instances, as this has grown, there would have been challenges at the beginning to partner with schools, and then to have some schools not respond, and you read that to me and they were not interested. You are not going to have every student or every child doing every sport. It'll be good if they were all interested, and as the director said, you would want to expose them to it, but none of us have done every sport, right? You agree with me? We grow to like certain things. For me, I was too big to run fast enough to win anything, and so I did the shot put. And when I looked a couple days ago at my nephew who is finishing his master's degree, he did this thing where, and I don't know the name, I can admit that. There you go. And he did it with form. I mean, me who don't know anything about the sport watched my nephew, and I thought that if he didn't turn loose with this thing, he himself would have been going, but he did it extremely well. And that's where he's invested his interest. And so I want to join and say thank you for what you do with our students, but I want to also encourage us to do it a little bit better. We want you partnering with us. The minister has already indicated to you that it's our intention to speak with you individually. And so that is to communicate some specific things to you, but we want to have the partnership with schools because we recognize the value of the partnerships for our children. We want to be able to give them a solid educational experience that does not have to always be formal education. And so I speak to you about the Social Enrichment After School Program. That's the SEEP program. Many of you may have heard something about it. It happens after school, so the full day of school ending at about 2:30, 2:45 or so. And then children get to stay on in our schools 4 days a week for at least 2 hours from 3 o'clock until 5 in most instances, and they participate in a range of activity. I believe the Commission would have reached out to some of you to tell you about the SEEP program and to invite your participation. I remember sitting in a meeting with some of you where we had discussions around that. So we're asking for strengthened partnerships where the Social Enrichment After School Program, or the SEEP, is concerned. I want to also encourage partnerships in collaborating with how do we schedule activities and expect schools to participate. This is dealing with sports. I had a meeting yesterday with the education officers who supervise schools, school supervisors, all 4 of them. And a part of our discussion at that meeting yesterday had to do with how do we ensure that we are safeguarding the academic program, the actual teaching and learning. We have 39 teaching weeks in the calendar. And truth be told, Minister, don't listen to me just now. truth be told, we're not getting 39 teaching weeks. We're probably getting in about 34 or so. And when you get into the second term is basically sports, whether it's internal sporting activities or external national events. Students are concentrating on sports for the most part any time after January begins until somewhere March, maybe April or so. How do we coordinate our activities so that we can get maximum exposure for children, maximum benefits for each of the associations and federations, and ensure that we are giving our children the best possible chances? I want to encourage, because this is something that we have started, it was happening a long time ago, but we're taking a concerted effort to do it now, is to share the annual school calendar with the TCI Sports Commission. So they are aware of our term dates. That information could easily be shared with each of you as federations. And if you are sharing your planned dates with them, then it means that we have an opportunity for better coordination. Where activities are concerned, where getting our children involved is concerned. If you're going directly to schools, especially public schools, and you're having any sort of resistance in terms of having children exposed to a particular sport, I'm inviting you to have a conversation with us or through the TCI Sports Commission to have that conversation, because I believe all of us are hopefully aiming for the same outcome. We want to give our children the best possible exposure, and we want to work with you in making that happen. Thank you for your time. I know you don't have questions for me. And you have questions? Okay, I'll allow one. Go right ahead. Jody, you wanted to manage this, or I can do it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Howell.
Good evening.
First of all, I hope that you know that your nephew is still an active and registered member of the Turks and Caicos Amateur Athletic Association.
Are we talking about the same nephew?
Yes,
Okay.
that goes to school in the United States of
Okay,
America.
all right, yes.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the same one.
Okay.
My question to you is, what do I need to do, or how do I go about being able to work with your department in giving more assistance to my association? The other associations can speak for themselves when it comes to trying to get the PE teachers relieved to work as officials at some of our meets that is happening during school hours. That is a problem for our sport.
In terms of being able to deliver on the track and field events on an annual basis.
Yes.
One of the issues that we are plagued with is when teachers are out, so you're not only asking for phys ed teachers, you're asking for other teachers as well who would have assisted in sporting.
Yes.
That has an impact on schools in terms of being able to deliver on the structured day-to-day operations of the delivery of the curriculum. If we have a number of teachers out at the same time, it impacts on individual classes because we don't have supply teachers on hand to take over some of those classes. What we've been saying to principals is we recognize the importance of the annual sports meet, and once there is the request ahead of time. This year we had requests from you, we had requests from Red Cross, we had requests from DDME, all coming at the same time. And principals now have to manage how do we and where can we release staff to be able to help and do the training and participate in the other activities in each instance and still deliver a full day of school for the children who come to school for that. And so here is what I would recommend. You have my reading of the request seems to be there are some regular people who you would ask to participate.
Yes.
You have your PE teachers, and you have some named teachers who are participating on an annual basis.
Yes.
I think schools would work with you. And what I recommend that we do for the next round of activities is let's get that out of the way early. And when I say early, we're talking late February, March, thereabout. I'm suggesting we have those conversations with schools from December. These are the people we're going to be asking. This is the time when we're going to be, when we have these activities, can we have them to be able to participate? Because they're not only fielding a request from you, they're fielding requests from other agencies as well to have people released at the same time. And it presents a challenge for them to decide to let somebody go or to retain them. Can we let them go for a day and they come back in and take care of the activities that they're responsible for? Physical education teachers, you're going to have. When it comes to the other class teachers, that's where the challenge is. And I'm suggesting that we have those discussions before schools go off for the Christmas break.
Okay, thank you very much for that reply, because with an athletic competition, an athletic meet, championships, we would need about 60 officials to effectively run a championships, which would range from 400 to 600 plus kids. For inter-high, it's close to 400 kids every year, and for inter-primary, it's like 600 plus kids every year. So for those games to run effectively and finish on time, we would need like 60 officials. So I would try to make an appointment with you ahead of time, maybe sometime in October, to come in and have a little discussion with you, and then send something in formally after we've had that discussion. So
Right.
thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Two responses, though. I will indicate two principals of public schools, because treating with private schools is different. But I also know I have a niece who helps on an annual basis, and I'm wondering the extent to which you can look at community persons who would be willing to volunteer their time for I don't know if it's strictly volunteer or if they get something out of it, but I know my niece, who's not a teacher, is involved on an annual basis, and maybe we could look at where we can get more people from our communities to help, as long as you can provide them with the training that they need. So
Yes.
just a point. There are no more questions, right? Thank you. You're all eating and enjoying the meal. Thank you very much to the TCI Sports Commission. Thank you, Ms. Harvey and Mr. Parker, Mr. Parker hunted me down, and he made sure that I was going to be here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howell. So at this portion here, we are going to try and make up some time, if the projector would allow me to. And for this next segment, we have two video presentations that are, okay, so we have two video presentations from our sports performance department and from our programs department.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Biakmani. I'm the sports program manager at the TCI Sports Commission. Extremely successful year for our department. The programs team, we deliver programs across the summer and across the school sports seasons. Whilst April to June is very much our planning stage, from July all the way up until March, end of March, we are extremely busy. And our success would not be possible without the amazing amount of support we get from our federations, officials, volunteers, work we do with our schools. We could not be successful without so many people being involved in the background. One of our major successes was our PAL, our Summer League, which is our Police Action League. Across across the summer from July to September, we ran 3 leagues for basketball, so 17 and under, 15 and under, and 13 and under boys basketball, and a girls softball league, which was 17 and under. Through that, we engaged with over 180 participants, and we had over 1,500 spectators coming across the 8 weeks of competition. Again, that wouldn't have been successful without amount of volunteers becoming coaches, helping with the organization, and then having the federations come into sport with referees and table officials. So great success. We had such good feedback. The boys and girls really enjoyed themselves, and we can see them already signing up to participate again this year. From September, the program team moved on to start working on the TCISS, which is the TCI School Sports Calendar. This was competitions, inter-high and inter-primary competitions. For inter-high, we started with football happening from September, and then we had basketball, softball, then our track and field season. Inter-school sports could not have been a success without the support we got from our federations, from the TC3As to the TCIFA, the Basketball Federation, and the Softball Federation. Working with the TCI Basketball Federation, we were able to train up new referees and table officials who we used throughout the basketball season. Working with TCIFA, the Football Federation, they supported us with having match officials, referees, and match commissioners, down to even helping us mark our field of play. Again, these sports would not have been successful without our federations. TC3A, which is our athletic federation, they, across the 3 days of competition for inter-high track and field and inter-primary track and field, brought over 70 volunteers. In the past year, I've definitely seen an improvement with our collaboration with the federations and an increase in schools taking part in our school sports. I'm looking forward to the upcoming year. Let's get started.
Okay, so that was the highlights from our programs department in terms of some of the things that we were able to cover within the last school sports year. And this portion of the AGM, we want it to be interactive. This is where we open the floor for discussion, feedback on some of the things that we would have executed in the last sports year and hope to improve on in this upcoming sports year. And so we would like to now open the floor for any questions for our programs department.
Thank you very much. I have a number of questions, but I can start with the most important first. The funding portion as provided by the Commission, I am somewhat confused as to how that works, right? Question number one, does it have to do with the audit? Is it based on, whether you get a qualified or an unqualified audit, you would either get the funding or you would not get the funding?
Are you speaking specifically to school sports? For school sports, that is usually funded directly through the Sports Commission. Okay. Now, if you're speaking to grants that are given directly to the Federation, we haven't quite gotten to that portion as yet, but I don't have an issue answering now with regards to that. Whether it's a qualified audit isn't, I don't want to say it's not an issue because it is, but as we hope to help the federations improve or strengthen their administrative functions, a qualified audit isn't necessarily held against a federation. It does, however, lead to more controls placed on that grant. So whereas someone with a clean audit would get funding unrestricted, just depending on them reporting back on what the application was for, the success of it, so on and so forth, someone with a qualified audit has more controls.
Yeah.
So it's not held against them.
Okay, I understand that. So basically, to an extent, if we wanted to spend some of the funds, you might say to us, hey, we can give you this $10,000, but we would have to see the receipts in terms of whoever it is paid to and things of that nature. That's what I'm thinking.
That may, and in our case usually is one of those controls or one of the conditions, that you are required to submit invoices or estimates prior to us releasing that fund. So, and it's also to help that particular federation with how they go about their reporting. So now it becomes easier to produce invoices and receipts for payment. In most cases, I know sometimes some persons call me and I just send them right back the same invoice they send me to attach to their reports. So all of that helps with strengthening the administrative function.
Okay, so when I want to draw down,
But an audit is a qualification that is in the Sports Commission's ordinance. There must be an audit in order for us to release grant funding.
okay, I understand that. And from a federation perspective, a basketball federation perspective, we've always had audits from, you begin to require us to have the audits and submit the audits, right? So one of the problems that we have is that you will have persons who would have served before you, and they probably did their best in terms of accounting for and so forth.
Mr. Cook, I don't want to stop you, but you're working me because we didn't reach to that part yet.
Yeah, but
so I really want to field the
but
questions as it relates to inter-school sports before I progress into that section.
The reason why, so bear with me, right? The reason why I'm asking this question, I have to leave, and
Okay.
that is
Yes,
a
sir.
very, it's very important. You know, we're trying to put all these mechanisms in place and grow the talent and do whatever is required of us as a federation. But then, you know, the funding becomes a problem because all of us that are in this room, we appeal to the same persons within corporate Turks and Caicos to provide certain type of assistance to us, right? And so we just want to ensure that we access the funds when they're accessible. And as the new president of the federation, as a person who has a degree in accounting, who has served in various positions, I will try my best to ensure that you get everything done. We'll get everything done and done the way it is supposed to. But I can't afford to not have access to a penny of any money that is due to us when it's due to us. And sometimes we might need, and I probably speak for my colleagues as well, we might need you to say that to us once or twice. You know, we got $10,000 here waiting for you. You need to do A, B, and C to get the $10,000.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get to that portion because it's impossible for me to answer you without it. So in the area where it says strengthening sports administration, that is where it was my intention to elaborate on that. And so that was to talk about elections, choosing officers, and choosing persons with particular skill sets so that those persons that are coming in to the new roles are not tasked with trying to make up for the past officers' failures. Unfortunately, it does happen, and unfortunately, there is very little we can do as a commission to work around that. Because as I said, flat out, the ordinance outlines very specific items that must be in place in order for us to release grant funding. One of them is an audit. And then just about everything that is required in the registration packet, there's usually a check sheet that I give. I think it goes up to about 16 items. Those are built into the registration packet because It's a requirement. And so once you've completed that for registration, you're basically already there to qualifying for funding. The only additional thing outside of what's required in that registration packet is an audit. I think it may have been maybe 2 AGMs ago, a number of federations expressed the inability to fund an audit, and that is how we brought on the audit assistance program. And so for those that have tapped into that, that has sped up their ability to access grant funding. I think we've been doing that for 2 years now. This year will be the 3rd year. And when we launched that program, it was with the anticipation that this is something that we need to do to help federations get on stronger footing as it relates to sports administration. And we had an estimate in mind in terms of how long we thought we would need to facilitate the program before federations can take that on themselves. We're not quite there, but the Sports Commission, I think, and feel free to disagree with me. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm just saying this because I'm the compliance manager. I think we have put a tremendous amount of support systems in place to be able to help federations access grant funding. But there's just certain things that we're unable to do. We can't write the annual reports. We can't keep the books. We can't produce the election minutes. We just can't. And so there's certain responsibilities that the executives of these federations are going to have to take on, and sometimes that means scrutinizing some of the nominations even more. I would not vote for somebody I know can't balance the books. Maybe that person needs to be the PRO person. Maybe that person needs to lead sports development. Maybe that person needs to head officiating of recruitment. But if they're not strong in accounting, I don't think that would be the best person for the treasurer. Because remember now, this, and I'm sure you can, this is a volunteer thing for everyone. So I am less likely to do something during my volunteer time that is going to be taxing on me. If balancing books is going to be taxing on me, chances are I'm going to fall behind in that task. Why? Because I ain't getting paid for it. I'm volunteering my time, and it's not something that comes easily to me.
Yeah, so and I heard everything you said, and I registered all of that. But the last point you made, so you do provide, because I'm out there begging, right? Because Baker Tilly did my last audit, right? Formerly KPMG.
No, they didn't do your audit. They did your financials.
Sorry, Baker Tilly did. They did our financials. So the assistance isn't with regard to the financials. It's in regard to the audit.
Yes, so those financials that was given to us during the registration process was then submitted to the contracted external auditor to be able to meet that audit qualification.
Okay.
So that we can now release grant funding to the Federation.
Okay, I understand.
But see, that's where it comes in. So now if you have somebody that's a little well or better versed with accounts or finances or even just record keeping, that's a cost that the Federation doesn't have to take on. And I think darts, I don't know how many persons would have gotten recommendations or key points in their management letter coming out of the audit with the auditor. But I know specifically when I followed up with him and asked, how is this progressing? Are we improving with our administration? He referenced darts. And he said there were some suggestions that he made that would help them in terms of keeping their records and financing, getting QuickBooks, and loading information in as best as they can so that at least he has something that he can track. And he said that he was pleased to see how they were able to implement some of those recommendations, some of those points coming out of their audit. So, there has been improvement don't get me wrong, there has definitely been improvement. And we understand that it's going to take our assistance to get that improvement because, you know, federations, as you said, are all begging the same people. But we're going to have to put on some elbow grease to help us help the federations and get the wheel moving.
Okay, thank you very much for responding to my questions. The other ones I will save for you when you're at work.
And I know you mean that. Do we have any questions as it relates to the school sports and suggestions?
No, I just got a comment. I think for track and field, what we were able to do this year was comprised of what I wanted to do or what I envisioned when I took on the role as doing the photo finish and the results for track and field. I think this year was since I started doing it in 2017, was the best year out of the 7 years since we've been doing it. Thanks to the president in terms of gaining the training we need to get the personnel around me. The persons that are around me now, I can truly trust them in terms of getting things done, in terms of getting ready, getting the competition ready. It was kind of skeptical leading up to primary school, but I think we did a good job with the primary school in terms of getting it off. I think what helped this year more than years and what has been the growing pain for track and field is registration and getting all the coaches register on time and get the registration done in time so that we can feed the coaches back the information. So I think a lot of the coaches were happy with the system that we put in place. Hopefully next year we can probably continue with that online registration and putting making sure that the coaches be more responsible in providing us the information that we need to make sure that track and field is successful in terms of turning out the results and getting everything done on time. I think this was the best year in terms of inter primary and inter high in terms of that. So that's my.
Hello again. I would like to put to the floor a suggestion that school opens in September, that we have a meeting in October with all of the schools principals or their physical education persons, and come up with dates from in October that is agreed upon and submitted to the ministry for inter-high and inter-primary. We can get those dates confirmed and agree with all the schools, and I think that will help us because this year we had to, do a little changing around with the dates for inter-primary, and we're looking hopefully to get both of them in February. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ms. Skippings. Any more as it relates to inter-school sports? One thing that we also want to encourage, I know it is challenging because it is also for us as an organization, increasing our volunteer pool. That is something that hampers any program, is sufficient manpower. And so we do want to make a challenge to the federations to think of creative ways to attract volunteers to your sports, to help with not just programs, but volunteers are also clutch as it relates to getting you on track for sports administration. And so sometimes the skill set you need for a particular project is not on your executive board. And this is where volunteers come in.
Good evening. When it comes to volunteers, I just want to get this in. I spoke to a number of persons who went through the high school system who played their role in sports and asked them why you're not out there helping us, rather than criticizing or standing on the sidelines and shaking your head. And a lot of them, you know, they s- they said, Mr. Bean, I really want you to love to, get into the system. There's various problems that cause me not to get a system. I said to them, there always can be problems. You have problems in the workplace. You have problems everywhere. So come inside come in the system and try and change it by putting your 2 cents in. But one of the main problems stands from when it comes to the school sports is work. You keep hearing them saying my job will not allow me to come out there and to put my time in. I really much would like to do so because I want to assist with the kids, more so with the adult sports themselves. They want to assist with the kids. So I'm asking if any way, maybe sports commission, the sports education, the education department, government could try and assist to help companies to release some of their people to help with these programs who want to help. Because I know in a few other countries, there is some leeway that was given to, um, to companies. I know Turks and Caicos is on a boom, and I know people really need their employees, but to get more, and I know it hammers me and it hammers a lot of our people, maybe a little bit of assistance with the companies who want these persons to help with the school programs, to get them out there, help them in this area.
Mr. Gray?
Check. I just want to touch base on the after-school program. I don't have a point where it's, we have a problem. I think it's made a solution. Being a parent, in my household, I have my daughter. She's in gymnastics, music, and everything, but the after-school program I see my son participating in, that the government has just pushed forward after school, that 2 hours, it's changing the lives of our kids. A lot of them who didn't have the opportunity to be active in sports, making the team, they find themselves catching it in a more novice spectrum where they can play fair amongst their peers and become better and also improve. And it's not only about just the sports. They're doing music, they're doing farming, they're doing so many other things. And I just think it contributes to society and it keeps our kids active. Just wanted to put that in.
Good evening again. The point I want to make in regards to scheduling, right? So we have a number of sports that wants to take part in school sports, and we need to have sports seasons so that we're able to accommodate all sporting disciplines. Of course, every sports season, we're going to get to a point in Turks and Caicos where we're going to have multiple sports running in the same season. Currently, we try our best to have one sport, maybe a male and a female sport where there are no clashes. But I do anticipate in the near future, there'll be a point where you're going to have multiple sports running in the same season. And the seasons have to be laid out in a way where it is the best situation for not just the athletes, but also the persons hosting these events, for the facilities where these events are being hosted. And so we will definitely be looking at our annual calendar and seeing how we can map out the sports seasons so there'll be less clashes where kids wouldn't have to choose as much, but they can play as much sports as possible. But keep in mind that while each individual federation might have a preference or may want to go all year, understand that when it comes to school sports, we have to do it in seasons. And even at the primary school level, with the new curriculum being developed for grades 3 to 6, they're also considering sports seasons that align itself with national championships. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to repeat the point I made about the curriculum, so the Ministry of Education is currently revising the curriculum as it relates to, or developing a PE curriculum as it relates to grades 3 to 6. So, grade 3 to 6. So in that curriculum development, seasons are also being discussed.
Okay, and so another video presentation that I want to show, this is as it relates to national team programs, building national programs, which is really one of our core focuses, is on as at the national level. While there's a lot of levels, grassroots and all of that, our focus primarily is how can we build capacity to compete at a higher level internationally. And one of those support systems has been mentioned quite a few times this evening. Football mentioned it, and I think there was another sport that mentioned, I think it was track and field, as far as working with our strength and conditioning unit, the Sports Performance Center. That is something that we really want to see more federations take advantage of. Just to get activity going within the Sports Performance Center, we had to extend those services to the high school teams in the first 2 years. Now, as we get a little bit more centered on international performance, we want to encourage our federations to take even more advantage of it.
Hello everyone, my name is Angelo Garland and I am the head of sports performance here at TCI Sports Commission. Here with the Sports Performance Department, we're in charge of the Sports Performance Center. This is where we build our athletes and their foundations and one of our strategies for the national team program. So with our strategy and our philosophy with the department, we believe that fundamentals is key, fundamentals is our core. This is what we teach our athletes from our training phases. Within the Sports Performance Department, we go through a variety of physical capabilities, that being strength and conditioning, speed and agility, change of direction, plyometrics, mobility, flexibility, rehab, and return to play protocols. We train our athletes holistically. How we build our athletes, all our athletes participate in a 4 to 6 week fundamental phase. And through this phase, what we do is we teach our athletes how to lift weights, how to position their bodies, and how to do things correctly. So how can you be a part of the Sports Performance Department? How that works is, coaches reach out to us, we arrange a meeting, and from there we determine what's best for the athletes. So the coaches would tell us the events or the meets they have coming up and where they would want the athletes to be at a specific point in time. Once that are arranged, we come up with an individual plan and then we bring them in for testing. All our athletes get tested before they start their program here at the Sports Performance Center. With the testing, we go everything from your weight, your height, even your biometrics or your BMI, your water intake, your protein intake. From there, we finalize your plan and everything is done according to the athletes. How do we check and monitor this data? With our new integrated output system, we can get a lot of characteristics and data from each athlete. For example, before they start their workout, we can determine how much hours of sleep they got the night before and how ready and prepared they are to do this workout. From there, we have the data and we chart it to see how the athlete progresses over time. With our programs, we like to put athletes on a 4-week program, building a 5th week to do deload and the 6th week for testing. And from there, we test every 5 to 6 weeks to see what the progression of the program has been. Once this is done, we sit down as a team, we go through what needs to be evaluated, what needs to be retrained, and that's how we go on with the program. Over the past year, we've seen hundreds of athletes, and we would like to see hundreds more. Now you know how it works. Feel free to reach out to me for any questions or any concerns you have, and let's get to work.
And so as it relates to our Sports Performance Center, as you can see, a lot of investment has gone into that unit, not just as far as the equipment, but also with the technology. What we're able to get as far as readouts from the athletes. He mentioned our output system, and that basically guides reps and builds the total athlete. Additionally, we're also automating a lot of our services. We're on the path to automating a lot of our services. That includes not just the Sports Performance Center, but even as it relates to registering as a federation. We're attempting to automate that so that there isn't that repetitive submission of certain documents. You would have a profile that you can log into. You can look at what's in that profile and update it. You can also log into that profile and check the progress of your athletes that are actively participating within the Sports Performance Center. In addition to that, I think the sports performance team does a remarkable job of communicating with the coaches, keeping them up to date on what the athletes are doing, and also accepting some of the things that the coaches say they want to focus on, whether it's 3 weeks or 2 months outside of a competition. And so we just wanted to take this opportunity to give a report on that and to encourage more federations to register. Do we have any questions with regards to the Sports Performance Center and how we intend to directly, or as the minister would say, intentionally link it to our national team strategies and building capacity for international competitions? No. So let's keep right on rolling. Because I have already started to touch on some of my compliance element, and we're battling the weather here, I just want to touch on the other things that I didn't speak to, and that was reporting. As it relates to the reports that are submitted with your registration package, over the past 2 years, I would say, for me, as a compliance manager, my focus was ensuring that as many federations as possible remained compliant. We can all give ourselves a round of applause. I think we've achieved that over the last 2 years. Now the focus has to be on the quality that we're submitting, how we're reporting. The annual report, some persons label it as a president's report. When we begin doing our assessment, it's hard for us to pull information from those reports that tell us how many participants you had, how did the funding that you received impact those programs, how many events you weren't able to go to due to whatever happened during the year. So one of the things I want to highlight is improvement with the president's report. Ideally, the report that is submitted to us with your registration package should be the report that you would have given as a president at your AGM. And I believe that is usually a full synopsis of what happened in that sporting year. That's the type of report that we're expecting. In addition to that, financial reporting, I think for the most part, everyone has been doing pretty well with the financial reporting or the financial statements that they've been issuing. And if there is an issue, I think they've been able to address those at the audit level. One other report, because we're rushing, I can't bring it up, but the KPI data that I usually send out on a quarterly basis, believe it or not, that's the most important report, because that's the one the budget office asks us for. The people that send us the money, that's the report that they want to see. How many participants are in your programs? How active is the program? Is there equality, gender equality in how you're targeting your programs? And one thing I want to say is that our focus isn't necessarily equality as much as it is equity. We're attempting to give everyone what it is that they need so that we can get all of our federations on the same level. And that KPI data reporting is a significant part of that. The one part that is often left blank is competition records. So we have no idea whether teams are improving or not internationally. When we ask for a number of athletes that are at university or have university experience, we seldom get anything for that. There's 2 federations, they know who they are, that would fill that in. But out of everyone, we hardly get anything. So we don't know whether we've made an improvement in terms of closing that collegiate gap, because we believe that that is our easiest and our best pathway to improving our athletes is through that collegiate pathway. We don't know if we're making a dent on that because that's left blank. And a number of other areas on that KPI reporting is left blank. So we really want to emphasize the need to fill that in. I would recommend using the same report for every quarter. So if you fill in the first quarter and you send me that, store that report somewhere where you can easily retrieve it to fill in your second, third, and fourth quarter and send that so all of your data is on one spreadsheet, and I think that also makes it easier for you guys in terms of filling that data in. The third type of reporting that I am begging for some improvement on is the grant funding reporting. The biggest thing we need from that in terms of the report, we need to know, did the funding make an impact? A lot of times when I speak with you in terms of what the funding did, some persons would say it wasn't sufficient. Some persons would say that, well, they didn't utilize it because, well, they didn't utilize all of it because they weren't able to mobilize a certain element of it. But these things need to be reflected in the report. Because for us, just as we're requiring you to do audits, we're audited. And when the auditors reach, they knock on my door and they say, we need to see the grant funding reports. We need to see what y'all gave athletes. We need to see whether the persons that were carded did what they were supposed to do with the carding funding, and whether federations did what they applied to do with the grant funding. Yes, Mr.
You just explained, you just was explaining it, just broke down what the funding that we have, how we used it in terms of.
So
you have
grant funding, participation numbers, project impact, project challenges, any collaborations that would have happened on the project, what was the purpose achieved, were adjustments made based on the budget and plans that were submitted. And if you look at your application, all of these are sections on the application. So it's basically just going back at your application and updating what you said that you were going to do under those segments on the application. And submitting invoices with the budget breakdown. And so with that said, I am going to invite Mr. Parker to come now. And I know I'm going to have to hear it from him tomorrow because he's going to tell me I always put him on last and he have to get short change. But
Jody, but before you go, I have a quick input. Now that all the sporting disciplines are here, we don't have a national sponsor when it comes to uniforms as a country. Now, the scheme of our uniforms for our sporting bodies, it all varies depending on who represents the Turks and Caicos Islands when we travel. And I think
what do you mean by the scheme?
The way it's displayed, the color. A lot of time, I know we have a standard color, certain colors.
And it's in the ordinance.
Understood.
There's also a fine attached to not adhering to that, a fine of $5,000.
Exactly. So on part of that, but there isn't, what you having that in play, but as a part of it, having it as a display, because we could have a replica of what we want the softball or the volleyball team to look like, or the basketball team supposed to look like when it comes to the standard of, or even the track and field. So the responsibility, I think, would fall on the commission right now that we don't have a national sponsor like Adidas or Nike or whomever. So if that could be displayed or a task you all put out, I think that would be important for the other sporting disciplines to follow.
I think that is something that the director did look into in terms of finding a national sponsor, but again, that comes with funding. And our focus, honestly, right now is building capacity as far as international competition and developing grassroots to feed into that system. But there was a notice that went out as far as the color scheme, and we gave exact color codes so that if you were ordering, you could give those codes to the persons that you were ordering from. Also in that notice was replicas for, I remember specifically for softball, basketball, and I think football. I could be wrong. but we focused primarily on the team sports when we were doing that replica. But the national colors are navy, gold, and white. It's supposed to be predominantly navy and gold.
Further to your point, Mr. Gray, I think when it comes to uniform sponsor, and you can appreciate this, that most uniform sponsors, they want to sponsor exceptional talent. So I think the more effort that we as a country put into developing our young athletes, it only takes one. You can see how the success that Lana Williams had in track and field and how Nike sponsored uniforms for a number of years. So all we need is one. So we can put our efforts together to develop that one exceptional talent. They can take us all along for the ride.
So,
you want me to make it that? Okay. Good evening once again. I was told to make it brief. And yes, I would discuss this tomorrow with Jody. I was given at least 10 minutes and she told me 2. So I'm going to try my best and to cut it down. She said, we've all had a long day. My topic for discussion tonight was supposed to be, is on the pathway, student athletes pathway. And I look around and here we have, I think, 12 out of the 15 federations here tonight. And a lot of you are very active, and some of you are doing your thing to keep alive and trying to grow your sport. But in doing so, there's an end goal that we all have. And I think Mr. Forbes spoke briefly about, and Honorable Taylor, you mentioned podium athletes. But in order for us to get podium athletes, we know that's the end goal. But in order for us to get to having podium athletes, there's some other steps that we have to ensure that we have in place to properly develop our athletes. Now, we know in the Turks and Caicos, we're about 40, 50,000, which is a very small number. And we like to compare ourselves to what happens in Jamaica, Bahamas, and other territories that have bigger numbers. And even with those bigger numbers, they still don't have the systems in place that places like the US, Canada, and Australia have because, again, of numbers, but they do have a system that's more developed and structured than ours. Just a brief overview. I don't want to read it because I don't want to bore you and be long. But let me say this about the athlete pathway. We all have a role to play. We have the parent, the student, the schools. We all have a role to play. And I'll fast forward or jump to the next slide that we're working on, and we're working with, to Mr. Howell left, but we're working with education to develop this system now, this ecosystem where we have what I just mentioned, the parent, the student, the school, and the sporting body, inclusive of the federations and the sports commission, all playing a part to develop and play our role in that student pathway. Okay? The school and our PS, Ms. Jones, the schools and the education department, Honorable Taylor, will be filling the role of educating our kids, helping them to get the grades that's required for them to matriculate on to college. I'll say this, football has a system that's currently in place, and I know they're more familiar with the athlete pathway, especially to the U.S., and that's what we are pretty much trying to model and to bring about here. We're trying to develop and strengthen the student-athlete concept among our athletes. We have a number of athletes in various sports who are doing well, and that's just it. They're just athletes. So we're trying to strengthen that concept and make it a staple word and thing, bring it to life among our athletes, that all of our athletes strive to be or one day become a student athlete. And through that pathway, we start our process onto having podium athletes. But as far as the roles that the various bodies that I mentioned, parent, student, school, sporting community would play, the schools will take on the role of providing support, supportive environment for academics and athletics. Well, we know through our high school program, and we're developing our primary school program, we would do our part in make sure that there are programs for them to participate in while the school continue to educate them with their academics. The academic requirement. Sporting bodies, I encourage you to develop a training program for your athletes. Here's why. And also Ms. Harvey, we're working on the registrar of your athletes. Here's why. To put students on this student pathway, it starts at grade 8, 4 years. You have to monitor and develop your kids for sport for 4 years. The school is going to do their thing once we meet with them and establish the AD position. They're going to be monitoring those athletes, those standout athletes that you've identified, to ensure that they're making the grade requirements necessary to matriculate on to a collegiate athlete or a semi-pro athlete. But what we require from federations is for you to play your part as far as talent identification from the 8th grade. We can't wait until you reach high school and you start to have success, because a lot of the foundations has been lost. And a lot of times we bring coaches in for a number of sporting events that we have, and the athletes are performing well. A beast of an athlete. But now when they have time to sit down with the coaches and recruiters, their academic requirements are below standards, or they don't have any to even show. So that athlete who was doing well throughout their high school days, at the end of high school, that's it. Because we don't have this system in place. Okay? We want to make sure we kind of turn the corner on that and developing the athlete pathway. So it's important that federations, coaches, you start to identify your talent. And as soon as you identify those athletes with the talent, you start to enlist them in some kind of register. We would have a program where we meet with education department and parents, and we put them on that pathway where we will now be tracking and checking their academic performance as they matriculate to high school. And we'll also have them enlisted for camps, high-level camps, whether we're bringing high-level coaches in or we're sending them abroad to go to some trainings. I know football, when I was with the Football Federation some years ago, we used to send kids off, and I attended one or two of those visits, those clubs visits, with some kids to get them to be seen by various coaches within that country. SATs. Again, this is more, Mr. Howell left, but this is more, we have to have these conversations again, because the school played a part in this as well. But as coaches, you need to understand the importance of SATs, and this is something that you need to keep track on, as well as the whole ecosystem that we're creating with all 4 entities. It is important for kids to take their SATs. Right now we have a number of standout football players, I think, Jody, and softball, have you, in the islands, especially South Caicos, who missed that window. And SATs, right, I don't think would be set again until August, and school starts in August in the U.S. So those kids would have missed that window. We don't have a system to say put them in until next year. A lot of them will either go into the workforce, leave the country, and if they leave the country, or some of them go into the workforce and pack the sport up altogether. So we need to follow and pay attention to the SAT dates and deadlines, and ensuring that our kids take the SAT on time. They apply to the NCAA clearinghouse in a timely fashion so that they could be clear and eligible to play that year. That also comes along with funding, which we'll talk about when we get there. So it's important for you as coaches to ensure that those athletes who are a year or two from graduating take the SAT and achieve the required SAT score. Now, with the SAT schools in America, there are two kinds of colleges. There's one that has the SAT as mandatory, where there's no way around it. Then you have the optional colleges, where SAT is not required. However, SAT would help you in the application process, because when you're up against those other candidates, it kinds of give you an edge if you have a good SAT score, because funding becomes much easier to give it to someone who has, that SAT score above just an athlete. Specifically for those of you in this room, this is your section. The role of a coach. Let's see if I can. The roles of a coach. Your biggest is to identify talent and recruitment. Identify talent from the kids that's in your program and recruit athletes to your program. Okay, you have a very big role, and that's why I stress the importance of coaches identifying those kids early, registering those kids, and bringing those kids to our attention, meaning the education and the sports commission. We then put them on a list. The athletic director position that we seek to establish within the schools will do their part in ensuring that the kids are taking the necessary subjects, as well as maintaining the required grade point average. Okay? And I want to go through all of them there in the essence of time, but it's important for coaches to play their role and ensuring that the athletes are identified at an early stage. And then we have, I spoke or alluded to this earlier, we have the recruitment process. Coaches, you have a role to play, a further role to play outside of the identifying of the talent. And this one calls for more collaboration between the federations and the sports commission or the government. Once we identify those coaches, some kids would get funded trips where the institution pays for you to visit the school or to come out and scrimmage for the school. And sometimes we need to do more, whereas we lined up, we make contact with those schools, and we set up dates that we can actually bring some kids to do some tryouts, some camps, so that the scouts or the coaches, the recruiters in that area can have a second look or a better look at our kids and have a chance to see how they stack up against the competition within their region. So we need you to familiarize yourself with that process. And once we have the system, we have all the parties in line and in agreements, we would have a kind of orientation to make everyone aware of the process. Make sure everybody's playing their role. Again, what we don't want to happen is to have our student athletes, to give them the racehorse treatment. We all know what a racehorse treatment is. They go to school, they participate for you, and at the end of their eligibility, whether it's high school or college, you say, we're done. So the kid goes through high school. At the end of high school, they don't meet the grade requirements to graduate, and there's nothing else the school can do for you. So you're done. The kid goes to college because he's a great athlete. They play for the college. No one's checking on their grades. At the end of their eligibility in college, you find out you have 7 more classes that you need to take to graduate, and your scholarship money has been exhausted. So you can't get no scholarship from the institution. How are you going to pay for school? You're done. That's the racehorse treatment. Like racehorses, after they finish running for you, winning, after they can't do that anymore, they take them to the pasture, put a bullet in their head, and they become food for something else. sound a little vicious, but if you're ever related or know of a situation, that's kind of how it feels. I've been around enough athletes to see, everything revolves around them and their participation in that sport, and when they can't do it anymore, like that's it for them. The balancing of academics and athletics, that's where the parent come in, and them playing their part to ensure that the athlete, I'm gonna stop saying athlete, the student athlete, because we want to create student athletes. The student athletes maintain their status as a student athlete. And Honorable Taylor mentioned this earlier. It's just the various sources of funding that will be available to a student athlete. They have the institution who offers a scholarship. You have Turks and Caicos government offers two kinds of scholarships. One is the sports, one is an athletic scholarship for student athletes. And then some of our athletes have American status. They're also eligible for some other source of financial aid. So we would also be making them aware of other sources of funding that's available to them. Now, TCIG Sports and Athletic Scholarship, I want to make sure you get an understanding of that. The sports is for those persons studying in the field, and the athletic scholarship is for those participating in sports. Okay? So just be mindful of that when you're speaking to your athletes. And of course, to launch the program, once we all have everything together, we'll be using some testimonies from some of our kids who've matriculated through the program and have had success. I'm looking straight at Mr. Willa Gray over there, who was a student athlete, and we have a few more in the room. Mr. Forbes, myself, Shanwell dreamt of being one, but that's okay. You'll get there one day. But guys, ladies and gentlemen, that's what the plan is. We're going to be developing this pathway, and we need your support. We need your full support in ensuring that a lot of the athletes who engage in your sport has life after high school. There's something else to strive towards. And once we get them into those institutions abroad who have the funding and the facilities to properly develop those athletes, then, and really, and only then, we can really talk about podium athletes, because the funding that's needed to develop a podium athlete is a lot. I'll leave it there. But there are other ways for us to develop those podium athletes, and it starts with us taking advantage of the resources that we have available to us and giving the athlete an opportunity to make it to the next level. So with that, I know my good friend Dave is signaling to me that we're almost in the second quarter of game one of the NBA Finals, so I would end there. Ms. Harvey? I'm sorry, any questions? You can't wait for me to leave. Any questions from anyone?
Questions for you.
No question, but that's just a comment.
Go right ahead, sir.
I think this is a brilliant idea to get rolling and started. But I think one of the major challenges you will face is with the parents and the kids. And it's all about teaching them time management, because that is one of the critical things that we find with the athletes. They want to be in sports, it demands some time, but the parents are going to say, listen, you have to study and do your homework and all of that. Yes. But they can do it if they manage the time properly. So that's a campaign that you might have to think about.
Yes, I do agree with you with that. I've had some of that, but that's why we're taking this thing from 4 angles: student, parent, the school system, and the sports economy, administrators. We're trying to develop. We have to develop that ecosystem. All right, the parents need the support because it's something new. It's going to be tough on the kids because the mass participation and everyone gets a trophy and all of that kind of stuff. That's going to be at a certain level. But as soon as we start to identify, they move over here. And things are going to get a lot more challenging for those athletes who are going to move over here because they possess the talent, and we have to make sure now books and all those other things are in place. Ray Charles say we're going to cross that hurdle. We're going to make it do what it do, baby.
Thank you, Mr. Parker, and I want to say a big thank you to all of our sports administrators for your patience and your commitment to this evening's event. Due to time constraints, we did not get through everything, but one thing that will be critical is the upcoming meetings with the minister. So there will be some email correspondence on that. But going into those meetings, two things that we didn't get to really go into detail on is athlete representation and member grievances. And I just want to point out that our ordinance requires for all federations to have processes and systems in place for swift conflict resolutions. And anybody's have no problem when ain't no money there. But the more grant money that becomes available, we're noticing more grievances are now coming up. So it's important for us as sports administrators to protect ourselves. And how do we do that? By having the correct systems and processes in place by which persons can lodge their complaints, and it's transparent so that there's nothing to say, oh, this didn't go or that didn't go. Everything is transparent, and you can point to a system that works. So I want you to think about those two elements in addition to some of the other stuff that we have covered. I'm sure the minister is going to have even more questions on these items when you have the opportunity to meet with her individually. I'm going to encourage you to also put together any other information that you wish to pass on during those meetings, because the notice may be short on those invites. So I can't promise you there will be a lot of time to prepare. So let's use this time now to prepare what it is, what content we're coming into those meetings with, so that it's meaningful, impactful, and can move the pockets of the government. Thank you all. Good night. Safe travels home. Oh, yes. And so for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to purchase your tickets for the ADF Project Idea event, we're having a movie premiere this coming June 15th, where we are raising funds for both programs, which is Project Idea and ADF. The college ID camp that Mr. Ritchie spoke to, that was an ADF-funded project. And we would like to fund more projects such as that, because it improves our plans for this pathway to improvement and success by way of the college route. So for those of you that haven't gotten your tickets yet, feel free to see Calvina at the back. She will definitely hook you up. She'll tell you when you can come back and make the payments for those. That's why I had to add that piece to the end there. When you can come back and make the payments for those, as this is a fundraiser. Thank you all.